yesterday.
I made a fort!
Clumsy, because he was frightened, he wriggled his hands into the microglobe assembly, reached to pick up a tiny tool, a sharp cutting blade. "I'm going to cut a tape mounted inside my chest panel," he said as he gazed through the enlarging lens system. "That's all." His hand shook as it lifted the cutting blade. In a second, it could be done, he realized, all over. And I will have time to fuse the cut ends of the tape back together, he realized. A half hour at least, if I change my mind. He cut the tape. Staring at him, cowering, Sarah whispered. Nothing happened. "I have 30 to 40 minutes, he reseated himself at the table, having drawn his hands from the gloves. His voice, he noticed, shook. Undoubtedly, Sarah was aware of it, and he felt anger at himself, knowing that he had alarmed her. "I'm sorry," he said irrationally. He wanted to apologize to her. "Maybe you ought to leave," he said in panic again. He stood up. So did she, reflexively, as if imitating him. Bloated and nervous, she stood there, palpitating. "Go away," he said thickly. "Back to the office where you ought to be, where we both ought to be. I'm going to fuse the tape ends back together," he told himself. "The tension is too great for me to stand." Reaching his hand toward the glove, he groped to pull them over his straining fingers. Peering into the enlarging screen, he saw the beam from the photoelectric gleam upward, pointed directly into the scanner. At the same time, he saw the end of the tape disappearing under the scanner. He saw this. He understood it. "I'm too late," he realized. "It has passed through. God," he thought, "help me." It has begun winding at a rate greater than I calculated. So it's now that. He saw apples and cobblestones and zebras. He felt warmth, the silky texture of cloth. He felt the ocean lapping at him and a great wind from the north plucking at him as if to lead him somewhere. Sarah was all around him. So was Danceman. New York glowed in the night, and the scribs about him scuttled and bounced through night skies and daytime and flooding and drought. Butter relaxed into liquid on his tongue, and at the same time, hideous odors and tastes assailed him. The bitter presence of poison and lemons and blades of summer grass. He drowned. He fell. He lay in the arms of a woman in a vast white bed, which at the same time dimmed shrilly in his ear. The warning noise of a defective elevator in one of the ancient, ruined downtown hotels. "I'm living. I have lived. I will never live," he said to himself. And with his thoughts came every word, every sound. Insects squeaked and raced, and he half sank into a complex body, almost homeostatic machinery located somewhere in Triplan's lab. He wanted to say something to Sarah. Opening his mouth, he tried to bring forth words, a specific string of them, out of the enormous mass of them brilliantly lighting his mind, scorching him with their utter meaning. His mouth burned. He wondered why. Frozen against the wall, Sarah opened her eyes and saw the curl of smoke ascending from Poole's half-open mouth. Then the Robbie sank down, knelt on elbows and knees, then slowly spread out in a broken, crumpled heap. She knew without examining him that it had died. Pool did it to itself, she realized. And it couldn't feel pain. It said so itself. Or at least not very much pain, maybe a little. Anyhow, now it's over. I had better call Mr. Danceman and tell him what's happened, she decided. Still shaky, she made her way across the room to the phone, picking it up. She dialed from memory. It thought I was a stimulus factor on its reality tape, she said to herself. So it thought I would die when it died. How strange, she thought. Why did it imagine that? It had never been plugged into the real world. It had lived in an electronic world of its own. How bizarre. Mr. Danceman, she said when the circuit to his office had been put through. Pool is gone. It destroyed itself right in front of my eyes. You'd better come over. So we're finally free of it. Yes. Won't it be nice? Desmond said, I'll send a couple of men over from the shop. He stopped past her, made out the side of Pool lying by the kitchen table. You go home and rest, he instructed Sarah. You must be worn out by all of this. Yes, she said. Thank you, Mr. Poole. She hung up and stood aimlessly. And then she noticed something. My hands, she thought. She held them up. Why is it I can see through them? The walls of the room, too, had become ill-defined. Trembling, she walked back to the inert Robbie, stood by it, not knowing what to do. Through her legs, the carpet showed. And then the carpet became dim, and she saw through it. Farther layers of disintegrating matter beyond. Maybe if I can fuse the tape ends back together, she thought. But she did not know how, and already Pool had become vague. The wind of early morning blew at her. She did not feel it. She had begun now to cease to feel. The winds blew on.